Welcome to the ShopNotes Podcast. I'm your host, Phil Huber. Today I'm joined, as always, by Logan Whitmer with a special guest of Andrew Zoellner, editor of Popular Woodworking magazine. On today's episode, we're going to talk about finding, creating, and prioritizing workshop time, as well as check in on any projects that we have going on. Thanks for listening.
This episode of the ShopNotes Podcast is brought to you by Woodsmith Magazine. Woodsmith Magazine has been the trusted source for all your woodworking information for over 40 years. From tips and techniques to furniture projects to shop projects, you'll find it all at Woodsmith Magazine. Subscribe today at woodsmith.com.
There it is. Okay.
That's a wrap.
Yeah. So today, Andrew, since you're here, maybe fill our listeners in on your role and maybe a little bit of what it was like to go from the transition from F&W to the AIM media conglomerate.
Sure. So I'm the editor-in-chief of Popular Woodworking. I lead a small but mighty team that we produce 7 issues of the magazine every year. We do some video work. We've published books. We're posting a lot of stuff online. And really my big goal is to just get people to make stuff. My favorite medium is wood. That's, I think, where a lot of people start, but we're trying to broaden the idea of what it means to make things. So, you've seen some metal in the magazine, some leather, some concrete, but really it's focused on furniture and functional objects.
Sure.
Well-crafted stuff, hopefully.
Right.
So I got these guys as coworkers this last summer. So it's a little over 6 months, I guess.
Yeah. The shine is worn off a little bit.
The shine is worn off. They purchased Popular Woodworking along with a bunch of my other friends' titles at F&W, and now we're all part of the home group here in Des Moines, Iowa.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So I commute once a month maybe down from my home in Minneapolis and hang out with these blokes for a little bit.
Yeah.
Which is nice because you've been able to use the shop for doing some projects and have a legitimate office space other than...
Yeah, I've got a nice office space, and, I do have to wear my normal clothes. I can't work in my pajamas anymore.
Pants on.
When I'm at home, I'm just, I've either got house Crocs or shop Crocs.
Right.
Fair enough.
Mm-hmm. Well, today's topic that I was thinking about was coming up with... making shop time, because I think we can all agree that it's easy for other little time vampires to come in and push off whatever you want to work on in the shop to another day or later anyway. So, but where I wanted to go with this is you've been running a hashtag online on, what is it?
It's 365 days of woodworking.
Right. So since we're well past I've stopped going to the gym for my New Year's resolution, I wanted to check in on you on your 365 of woodworking to see, where that came from, how you've been doing it, how you actually, because you're a busy dude, actually getting out into the shop and making.
Yeah. So, as the editor-in-chief of Popular Woodworking, I found that more and more of my time was being taken up by things that aren't woodworking related at all.
Like meetings,
trips to Iowa, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
What trips they are.
Right. Yeah. Pilgrimage, more or less.
Yeah. And I also, 18 months ago, bought a house that was built in 1906 and have been doing a lot of remodeling work and over the summer, a lot of landscaping. Yeah. And I haven't hired anything out, and it's it got to this point where I had all of the stuff. I've got cool tools in my shop. I've spent a ton of money on this hobby over the last 10 years, and it was just kind of sitting there and not doing anything. And so I decided, I'm a big resolutions person. There was a year I gave up eating pizza. There's a year I gave up eating sweets. There was a year I stopped drinking soda. In my mind, it's much easier to say I'm going to do this every day or I'm not going to do it at all.
Sure.
And that's where 365 days of woodworking came from. luckily I am remodeling my kitchen and building all of the kitchen cabinets and the drawers and the drawer faces. And so that's yielded a lot of my 365 days of woodworking, but also it's very cold in Minnesota. So like I set up a bee shop in my basement in January and that I've been doing a lot of work in, doing a lot of hand tool stuff. I've spent a ton of time sharpening things. And it's been great. And I haven't really felt like I've sacrificed too much other than like watching TV.
Sure.
Right. So do you find, now I find when I make resolutions like that or just goals for something, there's a initial hump of actually doing it every day where it's work almost to get to that point. But then after that, it becomes a lot easier, that there's more of a routine. Like it's like, I'm just going out to the shop because this is what I do. Like I brush my teeth every day. I'm going out to the shop.
Every day? That's absolutely how it happened. Also, I've been remodeling my kitchen for over a year now.
Sure.
And so it was sort of like I was avoiding doing anything with tools because I felt guilty about not doing stuff for the kitchen. And so I got over that hump and bought a bunch more cherry for kitchen cabinets and was like, stop being afraid. They're just drawer faces. You can put them in. Blum undermount slides have a lot of adjustability built into them,
Yeah.
And then giving myself permission to do things that weren't related to remodeling my kitchen. So I started doing some more turning. I feel like turning furniture parts is something I really want to get better at. And so I'm working on a standing desk right now. So I'm turning like 44-inch long pieces of ash.
Sure.
And as part of that, I was like, holy crap, I really need a steady rest. And, it all like being able to spend time just making stuff without like a deadline or like having to take photos and write about it.
Sure.
Is fun.
Yeah. Now, Logan, you and I share the fact that we have children in the house.
Yeah.
And that puts different obstacles in the way of getting out into the shop, especially since we're still kind of, at least at the recording of this episode, dealing with what we like to refer to as illness season as opposed to just straight up winter.
Yeah. Children are obstacles. Like they're short, but they keep growing. It's getting harder to step over them to get into the shop.
Right. Yeah.
We have the benefit of working in this industry, right?
Yeah.
So inherently we get shop time. Like my shop time before this was in the shop assembling a router table for a photo shoot. So, we do get shop time. But you're right, working on projects, there is points, depending on what you have going on in your life, that you have to make that shop time. Whether it's weekend,
right?
Whether it's evenings, after the kids go to bed,
and
that's a majority of my shop time. If it isn't in the shop during the day, here at work or on a weekend, it is after the kids go to bed, which generally is me picking up my shop. I don't know how it gets that messy, but I can pick it up very quietly.
Done anything in here, and yet it's a pit.
I know. I can pick it up very quietly while they're sleeping. So that's generally where my time comes from. The majority of my productive time in the shop building stuff comes on weekends. Usually. I'll get to the shop in the evenings or in the afternoon at work or maybe over lunchtime. But a lot of that recently at least has been turning. It's just been making a huge mess around the lathe, which is awesome.
Right.
But my furniture building production time has generally been on the weekends.
Yeah.
So, and that's where I can kind of slip away. I'll maybe bring my oldest in with me. So my wife has one of our two and I have one of the two. I have the easy one that I could sit there with his tablet and a bunch of snacks, a lot of snacks, like a pantry full. But he'll sit in an office chair in the corner of a shop with his headphones on, so he has some hearing protection. And, as long as I'm not sanding and creating a lot of dust, he's fine.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. See, for me, I find the same thing where it's like once the kids are in bed, so I'm getting a lot of work done late at night, usually in the after 9:30 to 10:30 or something, depending on how alert I'd like to feel the next morning.
Yeah.
I'll push that maybe to 11 or something and get some stuff done there. And that time I almost feel like you're kind of stealing it. It's like I'm just sneaking away to get there because finally everything's done for today or for a day. But then on the weekends, it's almost like I make that as almost like appointment time where it's like it's well communicated to everybody that, I know that you got this going on and you got this going on and we want to do this together as a family. But after that, I want to do time in the shop, especially once the weather gets nice, where I can be out in my garage and not feel like I'm shivering the whole time.
Yeah.
So
See, and I would like to do that, and I feel like I communicate that well on the weekend to my wife. She doesn't feel like I communicate that well. So a lot of times it's like, hey, we're leaving. Well, where are you guys going? Oh, we're going in the shop for a little bit.
Yeah.
Just because I have project parts here and my lumber's here a lot of the time. So it's like, rather than do it in my own shop in the basement, it's easier just to come in here because all my stuff's here already. And then when I do have a couple of days of free time, like in the afternoons at work, I can sneak back in and continue to work on it, rather than I hate trying to bring parts back and forth.
Right.
Because that's not terribly fun. And they always get dinged up and dropped and smashed and misplaced. And
even just shuttling parts back and forth between my A shop and my B shop across the driveway, it's because I don't really have any power tools in my basement. So like I'll process lumber, mill lumber, and then take it downstairs. And inevitably I'm either like denting the pieces as I carry them down the stairs, or like denting the new cherry cabinets I just built and installed too. And it's
yeah, or you feel like you have to have doubles of a certain amount of tools, even though they're only like 28 feet apart. Because it's like this is the 14th time I've carried this drill back and forth.
Yeah, or like you end up with a dozen tape measures in the basement and none in your shop.
Yeah, and that's the problem I get is I'll carry stuff out of my shop to like work in the garage, like if I am breaking down lumber, and then I'm done. I make it as far as to carry it back into my shop, but it lands on my outfeed table. It doesn't land back in the cabinet where it goes.
Right.
It lands on the outfeed table.
Closest flat surface.
Exactly. And there's where my dirty shop comes from.
Right. Yeah.
So when you're getting your late night shop time, do you find certain things are better suited to just having an hour or two in the shop versus an afternoon or a weekend?
Not necessarily, and only because I've kind of made it a habit, for the most part, working here, of having a project going on in the shop at the magazine, a personal project. So I'm already pretty good at being able to divide up a project into chunks that last more or less an hour, so that when I get home, I kind of know the kinds of things that I can accomplish in about an hour. So I'll take a project that I'm working on and make like a list of probably 8 to 10 of the next small steps that I need to do. Not the whole rest of it, because that becomes way too intimidating, and then I just end up wanting to stay inside and watch reruns of Clone Wars or something like that. But so I'll just take a few of those and then see if I can knock out one or two in about an hour or so, counting a little bit of cleanup time if I want to do that. Because especially here, I don't want to leave a big, huge mess.
Why are you looking at me?
I'm just looking around. It's just not any kind of accusation at all. But so I've, not to say I get it every time, but I can usually accomplish most. I can usually break it down into something that I can accomplish then. And then with my shop in the garage and the way our neighborhood's set up, I've actually found that I can run pretty much any tool at any time of day. So I've been out there. I used to kind of, not use my planer after 10 o'clock just out of, courtesy but with the windows closed, you can't hear my planer very far out past the garage walls anyway. So
now you use it out of spite.
Right. Yes. Rage woodworking.
You know what is really good for like an hour at a time in the shop? Turning. Just saying, Phil, I got you to turn the other day on camera.
And we'll get to that in a little bit. But yeah, so I usually find something where it's like, and this goes to the question that I have for you then with your resolution then, is what qualifies as shop time? Like for me, sometimes it's like, the chisels really need to get sharpened. So I'll sharpen the chisels, or spending an hour putting away stuff. And I've done that multiple times where it's just like the lumber rack needs to get sorted.
Mm-hmm.
So,
for me, you know, I sort of made the decision that it's not shop time unless like I'm cutting something or generating sawdust or shavings.
okay.
So I've also found, because I'm dedicating more time to being in the shop, that like I'm taking much more care of my materials. So like I've been resawing way more lumber than I ever used to.
Sure.
Breaking down bigger pieces and thinking like spending more time on the material prep than I had in the past, because it was just like I just wanted to get to the end.
Right.
And now it's like I know I have this time dedicated to doing these things. I can take a little bit more time making a better product.
Okay. So going into one of our standard segments here is kind of what's going on in your shop. What stage is your kitchen now for cabinets?
So I would put our kitchen at like an 85% completion.
Okay. Are you cooking in it now?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we've been cooking in it the whole time.
Sure.
When we moved in, all of the kitchen was in what was basically the butler's pantry. So the actual kitchen just had a stove and a refrigerator in it.
Oh, okay.
And it didn't make any sense. And so I did a bunch of demo in the kitchen, and then there was a week where we went without water in the kitchen area when I moved everything over. And like before we made that decision, I was like, okay, I also need to have our sink cabinet built, and we didn't have a dishwasher before, so we also got a dishwasher right away, which was a big like, the kitchen's a mess, but we can wash all of our dishes,
right,
kind of thing. And so now, a little more than a year later, we got our countertops installed in January. We've got all the base cabinets in with drawer fronts. Our first layer of upper cabinets is in, and then we've got 9-foot ceilings, so we're going to do a second layer of cabinets all the way up to the top. And they're not like crazy cabinets. They're just simple shaker style, pre-finished plywood carcasses, you know, cherry inset doors and face frames.
Okay.
And like once the countertops were in and we weren't like dealing with, I just had melamine tops on everything.
Right.
Once the countertops were in, my girlfriend was like, okay, I guess we can work in this kitchen now. Like up until then, the jury was still out on whether or not she liked what was going on and what was happening. And it's still only, you know, 120 square foot kitchen, and there's not a ton of counter space, but like,
right.
Once the counters were in, it was like, okay, this is a kitchen again.
Sure. So are you at the point where you're like ready for this thing to be done? Have you passed that a long time?
I'm beyond that point.
Yeah.
You know, in the beginning, I've rebuilt cabinets, I've rebuilt doors. We made some decisions sort of after I'd already built some carcasses. So like, I felt like I've built 2 kitchens worth of cabinets already. Which, having never built a kitchen before, I sort of anticipated. But now I'm just at the point where like I want to get all of the cherry into the kitchen now, so it can all age to the same color.
Sure.
Because like you can tell when I've done work in the kitchen, because like something will look sort of right, but it'll just be a little bit too light. And that's the cherry.
This is our late fall section and our early spring.
So what's the project after the kitchen's done? Or are you not looking ahead yet?
So after the kitchen is done, it's really not going to be any woodworking related house projects. But we are going to put a half bathroom in what was the butler's pantry.
Oh, cool.
And then we'll have 1.5 bathrooms in our house,
Nice.
which will go a long way towards keeping the peace.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
But then furniture wise, I really want to build chairs. Like I'm
Sure. Yeah.
Dining chairs, sitting chairs.
They're
all sitting
all
chairs.
of them. They're all
Just
sitting
like-
chairs.
Yeah, I know, but
kneeling
so I
chairs.
built a dining room table probably 5 years ago, and we're still using my parents' hand-me-down chairs that I grew up with.
Sure.
And so I want to, do some experimenting with designs and figure out what's cool, what's comfortable, what doesn't take forever to build. And it's probably going to be some version of turn spindles, and we'll see what happens.
sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Logan?
I haven't said this yet to anybody, but I took another commission piece.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
New Year's resolution broken.
I have so many of my own personal projects that I have half started and haven't stopped or haven't finished. That why not, right?
Right. Why not add one more?
Yeah, and it was funny because it's for a friend of ours, and the wife messaged me and said, "Hey, so and so's birthday's coming up." I was like, I know where this is going.
Mm-hmm.
He's really wanted a poker table. Can you build him a poker table?
Poker table. Wow.
But not a round poker table or
Okay.
an octagon poker table. A 4-foot by 8-foot rectangular poker table. So it's like an 8-person poker table. So she sent me some design ideas.
Mm-hmm.
I just messaged her to say, let's go grab coffee and talk about it, and we'll go from there. And I have 5 weeks to finish it.
Yep.
Did you see Adam Savage's?
I didn't.
Tested
Somebody
poker table?
suggested it. I actually,
Because he built his in 24 hours.
well, he's Adam freaking Savage. But no, so my initially, a little backstory. She said I would like this to not only be a poker table, and it's a family table. I was like, kids can play poker, but she wants it to be a game table as well.
Okay.
So like gaming / a puzzle table.
Oh, okay.
So initially I thought, Mark Spagnolo from the Woodsmith Guild has a really nice gaming table that has a removable top. You can set up like big war games or board games underneath it and then put the top on. And I put in that Facebook group, said, hey, has anybody put a poker table top on this? Because I'd like to see what it's like. Somebody mentioned that Adam Savage just did one on Tested. And I was like, I haven't looked at it yet. But I don't think that's the style she wants. But I did some SketchUp designs last night for it and sent them to her at like, I don't know, 11:30 last night. So we'll see.
Have you upholstered anything before?
No.
That was my biggest, like, the things I didn't understand at all
Yeah.
about the poker table was the upholstery and, like,
Yeah, and
how do you get things to look good?
I think what I've settled on, so I did some research. Poker tables are felt, but they're not actually felt. It's like a polyester weird thing, and they're backed. They're backed with like plastic, so they are waterproof. Okay, so if something spills on them, it beads up. So I watched.
Technically.
Yeah, so I watched some. Oh man, I don't know if I watched a video on refelting a table, but they were just using spray contact adhesive, and I was thinking I'm going to figure out how this top's going to go on. But I think if I cut like a slot in the edge and then cut a very small rabbet, I could wrap it around and tuck it into the slot, kind of like you would a window screen.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And hold it in with like a bead of that rubber window screening.
Like splining.
Yeah, like a spline. Yeah, exactly. So I think maybe I could do that, but we'll see. But I think the spray adhesive seems like it would work, or the spray contact cement, or just straight contact cement, seems like it would work well.
Yeah.
But upholstery sometimes is left best to professionals. So we'll see. Haven't got that far yet. But yeah, so we'll see. The base right now is 6x6 hard maple, and it's like a big like trestle style.
No.
And by my calculations, it'll be 180 pounds for the base. So
You should just go slate on the top.
yeah,
then
I
or
know,
something.
right?
Yeah.
I know. So we'll see. But yeah, so it's not on my bench yet, but it will be. It will
Okay.
be the next thing on my bench. And my wife doesn't listen to these, so I can say this. My end tables that are still sitting on the shelf over there in
Right, I see
parts.
that.
Yep.
Acclimating.
They will acclimate until mid-May.
Okay. Well, I love hate you right now, Logan.
I know.
Because
I told you
what
you
I'm
would.
holding right here, for those of you who are watching on the radio, is a chisel handle that I turned
Yep, you
on
did.
video. It's my first ever turning. And it's a set of chisels that I got from my wife for wedding gift.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to have wood handles on them instead of plastic ones, just as a way to dress them up a little bit. And it seems like woodworkery, like you should have wood handles on it.
Yeah.
So I thought I'd try turning them because I've never really been super satisfied with the plastic handles, and found a handle pattern that I like that's not too ornate, but not too simple. So, and had some leftover beech from some projects around here. And for the ferrule, right where the blade goes in, use a bronze bushing that we had around here. So it was a pretty fun project. I will say that it was, I can see the appeal of turning.
Yes.
And now it's just a matter of being able to finish the other 4 handles in a timely fashion to get it done. But it was kind of fun. And I thought the hardest part was going to be matching the profile to the pattern handle. And it went quite a bit easier than I thought it was going to.
I'm going to say beginner's luck. Let's see how the remaining 4 turn out.
Sure. And I can totally get that. But for a turning project, it was kind of fun. And it's also nice to be able to add that skill to. I still don't think that I would add a lathe to my shop at this point, just because of space and the money pit that turning tools can turn into.
Oh, yes, they can.
But for now, it's just kind of fun to be able to know or have the confidence to be able to do some small things like that.
So what's interesting to me, we also experimented with a finish on that, right? It looks like you might need to put another coat or 2 on there.
Right.
Does
See,
it
I
look
was going to talk to you about this.
Yeah.
We used that. It was supposed to be like a reddish colored
peacock oil.
Peacock oil was
Doesn't
the brand.
look red at all.
It doesn't look red at all, and it frankly doesn't look finished at all.
And we're going to have to read the instructions. I know we don't read instructions. We're men. But I think we need to read them and see, because I think you're supposed to apply multiple coats over a few days.
Right.
So we might just have to keep adding coats.
Putting more coats on. But yeah, because right now it doesn't look like there's anything.
And it's made with real peacocks?
Yeah, it's fresh squeeze. I think a herd of 6, like flock. Is that what we decided it was called? It was
No,
a
John
flock?
figured out what a...
I don't remember what a harem of peacocks?
No, it was a
gaggle.
A gaggle. No. Yeah, but no, it's no peacocks were harmed in the making of this oil. But yeah, so we'll have to see once on the finish, because I would like it a little... Beech has a nice grain pattern to it. It's kind of mellow, but I still wanted a little more of a reddish brown color on it.
Yeah, and I think, it's what skeleton saws use on their handles.
Yeah.
And they get some beautiful finishes on them. So I think we did something wrong.
Right. We'll have to look into that
Maybe
one.
we should have sanded higher.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Okay.
What did you sand to?
220. Because I didn't want it super shiny and
you don't
slippery.
want the chisels flying out of your hands.
Right.
No.
Yeah. And with the beech, it's actually pretty smooth to begin with. So,
So yeah,
right.
maybe we'll just do a couple more coats and then
see what happens. Yeah.
paste wax.
Right. So stay tuned.
Yeah.
Well, that about wraps it up for today's episode of the Shop Notes Podcast. Just a reminder that if you've listened and enjoyed the Shop Notes Podcast, please give us a rating on wherever you're getting your podcasts. We'd love to get those good ratings. It helps us get the podcast out to a larger number of folk. If you'd like to contact us, you can do that on our webpage or on our Facebook or Instagram account. You can log in and let us know what you'd like to see or hear or have us talk about. Otherwise, we'll see you again next week. Thanks. This episode of the Shop Notes Podcast is brought to you by Woodsmith Plans. You'll find nearly 1,000 plans covering everything that you'd want to build, from furniture projects to gift projects, kitchen accessories, workshop projects and jigs, and more. Find your next project at woodsmithplans.com. Ooh, it's an ostentation of peacocks. That's what John had said last week. Yeah.